For those of you who don't have myths, you probably won't have them. For those of you who don't have stories that bind you, connect you, create a relationship with something out there, there's a good chance you'll probably never get it. And so you'll forever remain an outcast. You will never be able to trust, have faith, love, like anyone. And the moment you get close, you will run away really, really quickly. Let me tell you a story first. There was a young guy in the cell, and all of a sudden he has a cellmate, an older gentleman. The old guy had lots of money, but no real life experiences. He lived relatively impoverished, psychologically speaking. The young guy had a good amount of life experiences. They were rich, they had substance, they had depth. And after talking to one another for a little bit, this old man comes to realize that despite having a very rich inner life, this young man doesn't have any money. And he has a sister, he has a couple of brothers, parents, all of whom he loves deeply, but they're in a financial crisis. So the old man looks at this young kid and says, let's make a deal. Every morning when you wake up, I'll buy a story from you. I'll buy it from you for $1,000. But once you sell me that story, it'll be erased from your memory bank. You will no longer have that inside you. Are you willing to do that? And the young kid, without any hesitation, knowing the consequences, says fine. So every morning for the next couple of years, they wake up, and the first thing that this young kid does is sell him a story. And the old man gives him $1,000. At the end of the second year, they wake up one morning, this young man goes to tell a story and closes his eyes and tries to meditate, think about the story, but there are no more stories left. And he looks at the old man and says, I don't have anything to give you. And all of a sudden, he does something he's never done before. He stands up and he starts walking restlessly in his cell. So much so that ultimately he collapses out of exhaustion and dies. If you don't have stories inside you, you don't have a foundation, you don't have an anchor, you don't have an identity, you don't have guidance, you don't have meaning. You go within to think about things about your past, but there is no past. And whatever may exist in your past, you don't really care for it, you become indifferent. So you are the shell of a human being. And you walk around aimlessly, confused, frustrated, oftentimes profoundly angry. And I'm just giving you a very brief summation of that what happens to a culture, what happens to a people, what happens to an individual when they don't have stories that can guide them. You know, for the longest time for us, when you get to be 20, there is a story that lives inside the culture. Your parents find a companion for you, you get married. It's a story that's been around for 1,000 years. Once married, after 6 months, you have a child. You get a job. The woman stays home. She becomes the glue to the house, to society. You as a man, you go out there and you work. You provide for your family. Remove that story, what do you have now? You're 20. What do you do? Well, whatever. You're a woman, what do you do? Well, whatever.